Is anyone here a fan of Airbex videos? How about dead moles? How about horror cinema? Let's talk about a movie that combines all those ideas into a slick 105-minute film. All I'm thinking of every time I look at something is liminal spaces. Last time I did a review, it was for a movie called Obsession, which was a very, very, very successful movie. And hot on its heels is this, Backrooms. So we got to talk about it. We've got to dissect Backrooms. I think we should. Like with the other review, it's going to be in two sections. We're going to do a non-spoiler bit and we're going to do a spoiler bit. We'll do a spoiler bit right at the end because there's loads to talk about that we don't need to spoil at all. I came out the cinema and I questioned everything. And that's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something when you go and see a film and you emerge from the darkness and you look around and you think, is it? Am I? What is happening? What's the meaning of anything? That's how Backrooms has made me feel. And there are questions. I have questions. I've got questions. Backrooms has me stumped. So the thing you clicked on asks the question, is this a horror classic? Yes, I think it is. I think it's a horror classic. Backrooms is unique. It's unique for a few reasons. And one of those things is where it came from. Like Obsession, Backrooms came from, well, it came from the internet. It came from YouTube. That's where Backrooms emerged. That's where the idea and the thing began. I think we're looking at a time in history where, kind of like the music industry, talent is there on YouTube. Talent is there on these social media platforms. People are doing stuff because previously they haven't been given access to the creative world of movie making and all of that kind of thing. The avenues opened up for making stuff that people can just go and watch. And you can put as much production value and as much effort as you want into it. At the end of the day, it just means that if people like it, people will watch it, right? That's the whole idea behind YouTube. That's the whole idea behind entertainment in general. Here we have a movie called Backrooms. Here we have this idea, and it's writ large on the big screen now. You can go and pay money to go and watch it in the cinema, and you can absorb it the same way that you would do any other movie. But where it came from a passion, it came from a desire, it came from a creative piece of art, I suppose you can say. But ultimately, it came from an idea. But what is that idea? That's the thing. This movie is great because it asks as many questions as it answers. I think as a viewer, whether you're cine literate or not, there's no doubt Backrooms is going to confuse you. There's no doubt there's going to be some part of this film, no matter how big or small, whether it's the entire thing or whether it's just a part of it, you're going to be like, what is this? What is happening now? Ultimately, it does enough of it. It does enough of just dangling that carrot to keep you interested. It's brilliant stuff. It's basically another example of a YouTuber making great short films and then being given the opportunity to broaden those ideas into a huge cinema release. I mean, this is a huge cinema release, this one. And as well as that, I'd say that this is an experience. And, you know, I don't think I've seen a movie with a style like this before. That is what makes this entirely unique and entirely amazing, really. The whole atmosphere, the whole environment, the whole feeling of this film, something I've never seen anything like it before. Again, it proves 100% that the genre of horror is so underappreciated in the creative circles of the cinema community. Go and see Backrooms and you'll be like, what the fuck is this? Or you'll be like, this is the most mesmerizing thing I've ever seen, because it is very mesmerizing. I've been trying to think of influences, stuff that this film, from a director point of view, from a world building point of view, what this sort of feels like, what directors does this remind me of? And I guess you can say number one is definitely David Lynch. I think there's a Lynchian element to this film. It's that broodiness of it and that sort of the undercurrent as well, the undercurrent of David Lynch films. You know, no matter what's going on screen, usually craziness, you know, from a character perspective. That is also present here in Backrooms. Backrooms has that. Backrooms has got that Lynchian thing about it. Odd story, odd characters, odd world building. Pure David Lynch. And dare I say, I got an element of David Fincher as well. If you look at Seven, what's the one with Michael Douglas where the remake one? I forget what that's called, but that one as well. Fight Club, and what I mean is the way that those films build their worlds. There's that thing again, world building. They live in this kind of real but not real world that like our world, but slightly weirder, slightly more strange, slightly more disjointed. That is definitely what Backrooms has got. Also, the way Backrooms is edited. Backrooms is edited very much like a David Fincher film. It doesn't give anything away, but everything is kind of there also. You can see things. You don't know what they are. If you dig a little bit deeper internally, then you'll get it, I think that's what the Fincher element of Backrooms has got. It's got that. One of the things I was trying to think about is there's a music video, right? I can't remember the name of the song, but it's got Gabriel Byrne in it. And he does this dance all around this hotel reception. It's so gorgeous. It's such an amazing video. Backrooms, it kind of looks like that. It looks like that. And there's loads of Spike Jonze films. If you've ever seen a Spike Jonze film, here they are. Here's some of his movies right here. If you've ever seen any of those, I think Backrooms has got that same vibe to it. It's got that vibe. Controlled wackiness. And I think that's what Spike Jonze did. I mean, I've not seen any Spike Jonze new films for a long time. I mean, I don't know. I think Backrooms feels like that as well. It's got those vibes to it. To have those three directors as something that this film makes me think about, I mean, oh my God. So Backrooms is a horror film. It's absolutely a horror film. But as with all horror films, we have to answer this one question. Is it scary? Well, Backrooms is scary in an unconventional way. It's frightening. It's actually terrifying. It's scary in a non-linear way. I can't explain what I mean, but that is what it is. It's got those moments where you think you see things, you look at the screen and something's there. Or is it there? Are you looking at something and your mind is making it scary? That happens all the way through this film. And I've got to say, that is incredible filmmaking, right? Because how a director can do that, can keep your mind occupied. You don't get frustrated with it. You don't go, oh my God, what the fuck? You are constantly thinking, what am I looking at? What is this? I don't want to sound pretentious, but I'm sorry, I'm going to sound pretentious. It's intellectually scary. Is that even a thing? Is that a thing? Intellectually scary. But it's also accessible, right? This is the thing. A high concept film like this, you would be well in your rights to think, okay, right, this is a high concept film. This is a sort of unconventional film. There's no big orchestral score. There's no big sweeping like crane shots. There's no huge. None of that is in this. It's a liminal horror film, but it's not pretentious. It's able to do what it does without any degree of pretension. It would be so easy for something like this, again, this high concept idea, to be like, hey, I'm so fucking cool that I'm just going to piss off half the audience. This film doesn't do that. This film says, all right then, I'm going to give you something here that you might not be expecting. I'm going to give you something that you kind of get the vibe of from the trailer, most definitely, but I'm going to make you sit there and I'm going to make you absorb this. I'm going to keep you on the edge of your seat, not by ratcheting up tension the typical way that cinema does, with that music and the thing and the build-y-uppy blah blah. This film's going to do it a different way. This film's going to do it a way where the quietness is what becomes the scary part, the gentle tone of it all. Even the sound of the lights, right? Those fluorescent lights that they have in all the parts of this film, in the thingy world and the real world, if it is even a real world, the noise is there constantly. That sort of electrical weird hum noise that those lights make, all the way through. But to be able to create the tension, those noises stop when you're supposed to feel like, oh my God, it is quite something. I'm honestly, this is great stuff. So stuff creeps around, which you hear and you don't necessarily see. And again, the tension is built because of that. You don't know what's going on as much as the characters in the film don't know what's going on. Again, that helps build the tension. So as I say, pretty much as a viewer, as somebody sitting back and absorbing this, you're on edge all the way through it. It puts you on edge immediately, in fact. It's like that feeling of anticipation mixed with a bit of fear. some parts of this, right, I was sitting there, I was trying to squint, so because, again, you look at stuff. In horror films, we've all been trained that when something is still and quiet, then something's going to jump out at you, right? That's the way these things are done. That's the way tension is built in cinema, is through either loud noises or silence. And this film does a little bit of both. So it kind of makes you think, I don't know whether this is the quiet bit that's going to scare me or this is the loud bit that's going to scare me because of the quiet bit. And I don't know. You look at the screen and you think, I don't know what I'm going to see next. And I love that. It's got this sense of doom about it as well. It feels ominous and doomy. And I don't know how directors do that. There are some directors that are able to get doom, that feeling of dread and doom on screen without really doing much. Well, obviously they're doing a lot, but without it being obvious, And I think this film, this director is able to do it. I mean, he's able to do it. The sense of doom, the sense of dread, the sense of all of that forebodingness is right here. The framing, the pace, and the score, they never ever let go of that sense of dread. I mean, the score, for example, it's not a score. It's noises. It's stuff, but it works perfectly. It's perfect. Maybe it's on Spotify. I don't know. I'll check it out later and see if it is. It's like someone had a load of instruments and electronic things and just dropped them down the stairs. And they all rolled down the stairs making these noises. That's what the score is like. But it fits so perfectly. This is the spoiler-free part of the review, so I'm not going to give away anything about it. But it is all right to talk about the story. I think that's okay. What goes on here, right? What's it all about? What should you expect? Again, without any spoilers. So Backrooms is from A24, a studio that is making some of the finest films. The traditional studios are, the stuff's okay, but it doesn't have the flair and excitement and ingenuity and uniqueness of A24 films. I mean, not all A24 films are amazing, but this is... It's like it crosses the streams in that way where it's gone from YouTube, that kind of small YouTube thing, to the huge cinema, big screen experience. And I think it crosses over absolutely seamlessly. It does begin with a really simple premise, as all good stories should do. A strange doorway appears in the basement of a furniture store. And Clark, he's the store owner, right? A man who's, screwed up world, both internally and externally for him, suddenly opens up into something profoundly, spectacularly odd. There's a doorway, and you go through the doorway, you enter what we'll call the back rooms. So on the other side, in the back rooms, the world is not so much a place as a fluorescent, nervous breakdown. You got endless rooms, humming lights, bad carpets, most definitely. Well, actually, to be fair, quite fucking awesome carpets. And the creeping suspicion that reality has quietly and slowly disappeared. That's kind of the first half of the film. It's that journey of discovery, right? That journey of finding out what the Backrooms is, what it's all about, what it all means. But also not that as well. There is no exposition in this whatsoever. There's none. Nobody sits down and explains the plot. Nobody sits down and explains anything. And that is also quite wonderful. But later on, Doctor, forgot name, Doctor can't remember, Mary Klein. There you go. Dr. Mary Klein. I didn't just read that. And she's Clark's therapist, right? Clark is the guy, the Backrooms guy. She's the one who knows him the most because nobody else wants to know him. He's isolated himself from everybody. I guess because he's a bit of a hot-headed knobhead. He's also an alcoholic. He lays in bed in the store and he drinks whiskey and vodka or whatever. He's not in a good place, let's be honest. But his therapist, I mean, she seems to care about him. She seems to be concerned about him in that therapist way. But she also gets, drawn into this thing, this place, this idea. He tells her about it, right? He tells her about what he's discovered. As you would do, she thinks he's crazy, right? She thinks he's a bit insane in a way. But when he doesn't show up, when he sort of goes missing, she needs to find out what's going on, what's happened to him. Is he okay? Because she is concerned about him from a professional kind of a way. You know, she knows what he's gone through. She knows he's unstable. So she wants to find out. So she goes to the furniture store. She goes to the furniture showroom. I suppose she goes to find out where he went. And the film turns that setup into a descent, basically through the liminal horror. As I said, where the most frightening thing is not necessarily the stuff that jumps out at you. It's almost as if the architecture of the Backrooms, it knows your fears. It knows what scares you. It knows how to affect you. It knows how to destroy you in a way. It's eerie, uncanny, and deeply uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, what a great word to describe this film. Yes, uncomfortable. Oh my God. All right, I've not given anything away about the film. Nothing. I've said nothing that'll spoil it. Nothing whatsoever. So let's talk about the cast. But let's get out of here because, you know, it's getting busier. People are looking at me thinking I'm crazy. They might be right. So, all right, let's carry on our way home and let's talk a bit more about Backrooms. So we should talk about the cast of Backrooms because although it's a tiny cast, it's an amazing cast. Right, first of all, names. I'm going to try this. Chiwetel Ejiofor. I think I got that right. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So he plays Clark, and Clark is our main guy. Clark is our man who owns the furniture store. You know, and I suppose the other thing about this is I'm not sure when this is set. I guess it's set in the early 90s because some of the stuff that happens. But I don't think that's relevant, really. I don't think it matters. But it does have that kind of no flat screens, no mobile phones, you know, that tape decks in your car, all of that stuff. No Bluetooth. Anyone with a Bluetooth back then in the 90s would have needed to go and see a dentist. Chiwetel Ejiofor, he plays Clark, and Clark is the owner of the store. He's the guy who sells the furniture, this awful, formica-y, horrible, weird furniture that may have just been normal furniture in the early 90s or whatever, I don't know. But the store isn't doing very well. It's almost vacant. There's hardly any furniture in there anyway for being such a huge store. More importantly, there are no customers. So things aren't going very well for Derek. Things aren't going very well for Clark. And one of the important things about him as a character is he's a failed architect, right? And when we get into spoilers, you know, that might just be relevant. In fact, I think it's very relevant. One of my favourite actors of recent times, Renate Reinsve. Obviously, you've seen her in the trailers or whatever. And she plays Dr. Mary Klein. And she's another very important character in this film. I guess she's us. She's the audience. The stuff that goes on is so bizarre and so strange that we need a sort of human relation to help us try and understand what it is that's happening here. Not that the film does that anyway, because it descends into that chaos I talked about before. But anyway, she's the doctor. She's the therapist of Clark. So went the wrong way, and now I don't know where I am. No idea, not a clue where the fuck this is. At least I'm not in a liminal space, or am I? So yeah, so she is a central, important character in this story. Some of the stuff that happens, you know, in the last half of this film, we go on a journey with her. What I would call a darkly, quietly terrifying journey. Oh my God, we do. There's not many other people in this. You've got someone called Bobby, who's Kat's boyfriend. Kat is the store clerk, or, you know, one of the employees, or the only employee of Clark. You know, she's great. She's got this sarcastic, sort of emo, fuck you kind of attitude about everything. And Bobby is her boyfriend. So you got those two as well. Those two are there. And apart from one other person, that's it. Mark Duplass is the last sort of person that I'll mention. I don't want to talk about him so much as to what his role is in the film, because I don't think it's a spoiler, but it could be. So we'll talk about that later. But that's it, right? There's nobody else in this. It's very light on cast. That ain't no criticism. All right, so let's talk about where this came from. Well, it came from YouTube and 4chan, actually. This is not the first time that YouTube has been responsible for a big budget, big ideas, movie that's made its way into cinemas, particularly of the horror variety. Let's pull over and let's talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that we've seen come out of YouTube. Stuff that is decent. So we got Lights Out. It was released on Vimeo and YouTube back in 2016. And from there it became, it became a huge thing. It eventually ended up with a really, really well received and really well reviewed horror movie, again called Lights Out. It's got this whole quiet thing going on. Whereas Backrooms lives in the light, particularly in that sort of fluorescent light. Lights Out, well, think of the name, right? It absolutely lives in darkness. And it's beautiful. Lights Out is a great film. It's a scary film and it's a really good horror movie. Another example of the social media, YouTube-y, Vimeo-y thing bringing us something amazing. And Skinamarink is another good example because that is really stripped back. It's almost kind of, if you're in a certain mindset, you could probably watch Skinamarink and go, well, nothing happened. If you're in that place, if your mind is in the mood for it, then it's a very affecting horror film. Skinamarink is really good. It's really, really good. And again, that came from YouTube. That was a YouTube thing. It was from a short movie called Heck, which was the proof of concept for Skinamarink. Another one, which is getting a sequel, Talk to Me, is one of those films that is absolutely like batshit crazy, but in a really, really good way. It's got the ideas, it's got the feelings, it's got the thoughts behind it that make it something special. I think Talk to Me is really good and it is very scary. When shit goes wild, it goes wild. And you're like, hairs on the back of your neck standing up thing. Talk to Me does that. Talk to Me does it. And it's a really great movie. And it was seen by people and people responded to it in a really positive way. And it's another fine example of how the movie industry has isolated people so far away from it. It's just kept its own little circle of people making stuff, releasing stuff. And it's become stale. And you look outside of that bubble, that sort of Hollywood, well, not necessarily just Hollywood, but you look outside that Hollywood bubble and you see real talent there. You see real ingenuity, real exciting ideas. They're on YouTube and they're on other social media platforms. Obsession, right? That's another one. The idea was born and seen and loved on social media, on YouTube. Now we've got Obsession, which has made an absolute ton of money. And making money does not necessarily mean it's a great film. But when you think of something like Obsession and you think of something like this, Backrooms, both really tiny budgets, tiny budgets, a fraction, like one day of production on the Avengers Doomsday film could pay for 10 Obsessions, could pay for 10 Backrooms movies. I suppose I've got to mention Shelby Oaks, which is Chris Stockman, right? Fellow YouTube reviewer person. Didn't do very well. He's okay. It's an all right film. It's pretty decent. But, again, he went down that path. Film reviewer, and he's made himself a movie, and it's out there for you to watch, and it's called Shelby Oaks. And it's all right. It's okay, Shelby Oaks. It's got its moments of chillingness, and it's got its moments of what the fuck. And it does work overall, but, Shelby Oaks is all right. I ain't gonna diss Chris. Why did I say that? Anyway, this film, Backrooms, and, Obsession as well, born from this place, they came from this place of creativity, pure creativity. There's no spreadsheets, and there's no accountant saying, well, we need to have this much of the thing, and the thing needs to do... It's all art form. Backrooms is art form. So let's carry on and let's go into spoiler territory. Spoiler territory. All right, so if you've not seen Backrooms, turn off the review. Don't watch any more of this. We're going to go right deep down into the many, many layers, and we're going to try and figure out what this is all about, because I am of the opinion that, number one, I loved this film. I thought it was great. I thought it was fabulous. But I don't quite understand it. And for the first time, not understanding a film makes me appreciate it even more, because it's been able to do something that I wasn't expecting it to do. And that's to entertain me, right? Which is always a good thing. But as well as entertain me, it's also been able to confuse me, scare me, and make me feel like, I need to figure out what's going on here. You know, the wandering, drifty camera, for example. What the camera looks at is really important. No matter what it is, no matter how insignificant it seems. Well, it's all relevant. We're in spoilers, right? So we can talk about the story a bit more in depth than what we did before. For me, the film is obviously about trauma. I think the trauma and the backrooms are completely mixed together. They're completely entwined. We've all got trauma, right? We all have trauma from whatever thing that's happened or whatever we've done or whatever it is. If we were to represent that trauma as a place, as a real environment, then you could say the backrooms would be that place. And that's the thing, right? Because you've got Clark's character and you've got the Doctor. Both of those characters have trauma. And the thing that I noticed was every time that we see Clark and every time that we see Mary, I think the film becomes, you know, their trauma. I think the movie becomes their trauma. And when Mary goes through that doorway, she doesn't really go looking for Clark. She goes looking for answers. And not to where is Clark. That's not the answer she's going for. Because in the scenes where she's doing the therapy for Clark and in the scenes where she's at home and in the flashbacks as well. So that's the thing, right? So the flashbacks, from her perspective, the flashbacks tell us that she does have a trauma. She's buried that trauma, and it's obviously because of her mother. And her mother kept her as a prisoner in her house. You know, the windows are covered up with stuff, and the front door is, you know, basically barricaded in. Mary, as a child, is, you know, she has to deal with this. She has to deal with her mother being this kind of a person, being I don't know, I guess you can say paranoid schizophrenic or whatever you want to call it. She's got the fear of what's going on outside, and that translates directly into her experience of the backrooms. When Clark goes into the backrooms for the first time, when he discovers it, when he goes through that sort of wall door thing, which is an amazing effect, by the way. I mean, you've obviously seen the film because you're watching the spoilers. It's a doorway, but it's a wall, and he just kind of goes through it, and the special effects are really great because it's just so understated. It's what it would look like if it really happened. You know, in the hands of another director, in the hands of a Hollywood person, it would be like, oh yeah, we need like a glowy light thing, and we need like, you know, sparks coming off it or whatever. It needs to have this thing. We need to understand what it. No, again, like everything else in this movie, it's all stripped back. It's all realistic in an unrealistic way. But anyway, so he goes through the wall door thing, but when he goes into the back rooms, we have this like pile of furniture in the very first room that he goes into. And I was trying to think, well, what is the representation of that? What does that mean? What is that furniture? I mean, he does own a furniture store and he does sell furniture. So that's kind of the first obvious thing. But actually, if you hark back to Mary's flashbacks or Mary's nightmares, the doorway to her house is also piled up with furniture. I think that the backrooms knows that Mary's going to go there and Mary's going to go in and see and be a part of it, the same way that, you know, Clark is. And I think it's trying to tease us to tell us, you know, oh, well, Mary's going to be here. The furniture piled up is a representation of her, as well as it's a representation of him. And, you know, again, that's really smart the way it weaves those two things together. Before they've kind of met each other on that level, they meaning, you know, Clark and Mary, of course. I mean, they've met each other, but only is in a professional capacity. But, you know, Clark does tell her about this place, and it's a thing, and she doesn't believe him because, you know, she's a therapist, right? She's not going to believe some crazy story about finding this place in a wall in the basement of a furniture store. She's not gonna believe that. I think the backrooms knows that these two people are going to eventually end up in the backrooms. And again, you know, that gives us a clue as to the fact that the place itself is this supernatural thing. It is this odd reality. I mentioned Mark Duplass before, and he is an async scientist. He plays Phil. So let's talk about async, right? Async is something that pops up a lot in this movie. You know, the beginning of the film is the async scientists, I suppose. They're all, you know, they're going around the back rooms, they're trying to figure out what it is, they've got a video camera, and that's the stuff that harks right back to the original, you know, the backrooms idea anyway. From what I can gather, they originally made MRI scanners, you know, the things that look for illnesses and stuff like that. that you get in hospitals. And then they discovered the back rooms. They stopped making those scanners and they started to investigate to figure out a way of understanding the back rooms, harnessing the power of the back rooms, replicating what the back rooms is. That is essentially what is going on from the async side of the world. But also, we see that the camera that Clark looks at when he goes into the back rooms itself. Phil is sitting there watching on a TV screen Clark going into the back rooms. But I suppose you can say to yourself, well, we don't really need to have every single mystery answered. If you don't like the explanation, you could roll your eyes, right? If you don't like what it's all about, you could think, oh, well, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? I wanted it to be this, and it's not this, it's something else. So it's all left sort of unanswered. If you skip right to the end, if we go right to the very end of the film, this place, this scene, this setting is what we see in the original Backrooms, like YouTube stuff. Mary, she was caught and pulled out of the Backrooms and is now in the real world. Or is she in the real world, or is she still in the Backrooms? Who knows what's going on? If we take it at face value with what happens, she looks like she wasn't supposed to be there. She looks like this was supposed to be Clark's experience, and she wasn't supposed to be in Clark's experience. The multi-faced people, I think they are people that did the same thing Mary did. They went into the Backrooms. They ended up being the multi-faced people. But then, one of the questions I've got, right, and maybe someone watching this can answer it, is the multi-faced woman, is that Clark's wife? Is it Clark's wife? I don't know who the guy is, right? The guy who has got a cake stomach. I don't know who that is. In the scene when Mary and Clark are at that kitchen table thing, again, in the back rooms, it's a very tense scene. We don't know what's going to happen to anybody. Clark is coming across as this kind of crazy guy. He's coming across as this murderer, essentially. They have this patient kind of conversation again. They do that. Clark, for want of a better word, scalps her. He scalps her. He puts her hair on Mary's head. Earlier on in the film, they were doing that role play thing where she pretends to be his wife and he sort of says how he feels about everything to his wife, even though his wife isn't there, of course, because it's a therapy session. That sort of is played out again around the table with the cake belly man and her in the corner. So I think it is his wife. I think it's his wife. Then you ask the question, well, okay, so because of what happens to Mary, because at the end of the film, Mary, becomes one of those entities that is in the back rooms. But is she in her own back rooms? She becomes one of the multi-faced people. But does that mean that Clark's wife did go into the store and did find the back rooms as well and ended up going through the same thing? Or is Clark's wife there, but is she a figment of his imagination? Is she something that he needed to have in the back rooms with him? I don't know. And then you've got the guy in the wheelchair with the lamp. He does that with the lamp, and it's like, okay, now I don't know the significance of that. I don't know whether that means anything. I don't know whether it's there because it's just a crazy visual, because it is a crazy visual, or if it's significant. I don't know. What do you think? Is it significant? Did I miss something there with that? It's not the scariest film I've ever seen, but it certainly does have its tension. It really does amazing stuff with the setting, because that's what it's about. This film is about that setting. And Chiwetel Ejiofor is absolutely, he's so good. He is so good as Clark. Clark is a really sparky, I suppose you could say, difficult to like main character, which is fine, right? That's not a criticism. That's a great thing, because it means our lead character is edgy and is unpredictable and is, as odd as the Backrooms. All right, so questions. The pirate version of Clark. What does the pirate version of Clark represent? At the beginning of the film, Clark does that advert where he's dressed as a pirate, right? To sell the furniture, to put on TV, blah, blah, blah. Basically, the entity, the thing that sort of runs after Mary at the end of the film, that is the pirate version of Clark. Now, why does the pirate version of Clark kill him? So is the Clark that meets Mary you know, around the table and getting the cake man belly thing and the wife and the scalpy. Is it Clark or is it another entity within the Backrooms? He acts differently than Clark does. You know, Clark is a very angry and very curious kind of a guy. I think Clark is not inherently angry. He's only angry when he's drunk. I think that's what it is, or when he thinks about alcohol. But when he's in the Backrooms, Clark is more curious than anything else. So I don't think Clark would be angry, especially angry around Mary, because he wanted to prove to Mary that he wasn't crazy, which is why I'm doubting the fact that Clark isn't really Clark. Clark is another manifestation of Clark. And that's why piracy Clark kills the manifestation of Clark. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. That's one of the theories that I've got about that particular thing that happens. And I think that because at that point in the film, we're experiencing Mary's backroom. And I think that's signified by when she does go through the wall door thing, there's no furniture there. The furniture's gone. Whereas when the other two, when his assistant and her boyfriend go through the door wall thing, the furniture is there. It's there exactly as Clark experienced it. Mary goes through the door. There's nothing in that room. There's nothing there. It's an empty room. The only thing that is there is the stop sign, or it's backwards, right? The whatever stop is backwards. That's what it is. It is stop signs back. That's the only same thing that you see. A lot of the other stuff that is in the back rooms when Mary's in there versus when Clark is in there, it's all quite different. I suppose you can say, well, you know, the back rooms are in the basement of a furniture store, so obviously that means that's why there's so much furniture everywhere. But I don't think so, because some of the stuff that at the end, when Mary is running away from that Clark representation, scary man pirate thing, she's going through some of the stuff that isn't representative of the furniture store. She's going through some of the other stuff that's representative of her apartment, of her office room, stuff like that. So I do think that at that point in the film, we're experiencing the back rooms from Mary's perspective. And you know, the reason why they're in there in the first place, Clark is in there because, well, I mean, he can't stand his life, right? Everything's falling apart since he left his wife, which is why, again, I think that multi-faced lady, I think that's his wife. I think so. I mean, there's a picture of his wife on his bedside cabinet thingy. I think it's her. I think so. I could be wrong. Does anybody know? And that harks back to the scene where he literally sleeps in his furniture store. I guess you can even say that, even on a metaphorical level, he is already in the back rooms. He's living and breathing the back rooms because, you know, he's living in his furniture store. He's lying in one of the beds in the store. And I don't know why, but I would love to do that. I would love to go and spend the night in a furniture store just like that one and sleep in the beds and, you know, sit around in the living rooms and all of that. That would be great, right? The thought that's gone into this is phenomenal. The stuff you can walk away from it thinking about and discussing and going through in your mind. There's so many things. It's just great filmmaking, right? This is what filmmaking is all about. This is what it should be all about. It should be about ideas and making you think as an audience member, elevating your soul in terms of seeing something amazing. So yeah, if I could get a question answered, who is the guy with the lamp? Who is that guy with the lamp? What does he represent? Maybe I missed something that kind of alludes to what that is. And it's the same with the cake belly guy as well. Who is that? Where is he from? Help me along here. Contribute. Have I got this right? Have I got some of this correct? What do you think? What's your experience of Backrooms? Because if you've joined me in the spoiler bit, then you'll have seen it, right? What was your take on Backrooms? Because my take is that it's pretty damn wonderful. It's pretty damn great. And I'm looking forward to seeing it again. What about you? Did you get frustrated? Did it annoy you? Was it what you expected? Was it better than what you expected? Was it worse? Let me know in the comments. I would love, love, love you to tell me. So let's sum up Backrooms. Backrooms is a movie that, at first glance, is a strange, odd place to be. It's an odd place to be for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is that it's a liminal horror film. It's born out of this world of just looking at stuff without any explanation. And what they needed to do was they needed to take that idea and they needed to give it a reason to exist. They needed to give it a story and a character and something for us to get invested in. It does that brilliantly. This is a really beautifully made film. It's obscure, but it's definitely not a pretentious film. And I was worried a little bit. I was thinking to myself, is this going to be too pretentious for its own good? And I can safely say that it didn't. You know, if you're cine literate, then you're going to love this to pieces. If you're not cine literate and you just want to go and watch a horror film, I think it can work like that as well. You do study it, you look at it so hard because you're trying to figure out what's going on. But you know, it doesn't alienate you, it doesn't isolate you. It keeps you on board, it keeps you on side all the way through it. And no, it doesn't explain everything. And it doesn't need to explain everything. It just happens in front of you. This is something where you can take your own ideas away from it. But again, it doesn't detract from the experience itself. When the movie finished, the people in the cinema, which was absolutely full, by the way, making all these noises like, well, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Other people were like, oh my God, amazing. Other people were like, well, I need to see this again. And that's where I am. I need to go and see this again. And I suppose that's another really smart thing about this film, is it doesn't frustrate you. It gives you just enough to make you interested in seeing it again and living in that world and experiencing it one more time, just to see if you think you saw is what you saw. If they keep on making stuff like this with ideas, thought, love, care, attention, and just wonderful acting and wonderful characterization, and just all-round wonderfulness, then cinema is back with a vengeance. And I say, I can't wait for the next one. So anyway, this is the Film Podcast. That was my review of Backrooms. If you're into horror films, you've definitely got to go and see it. And you've got to go and see it in the cinema, and you've got to go and see it with a crowd of people, because whatever reactions they have to it, whatever reaction you have to it, it's all significant. I will see you again for another review next time on the channel. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. I will see you again soon.